All right. Hey, this thing works. All right, so I'm Charlotte, as James said. For the last few years, I've been a product mercenary, so dropping into unsuspecting startups, helping them build up their product UX development team and launch their first product. And then I bungee out again and go on to my next adventure, rather like Mary Poppins. So here with my thoughts over long years of experience on building a creative culture. What do I mean by this? I mean a culture, first and foremost, that is human and that people would actually kind of want to work in. A lot of times we vaunt startup founders for their creativity. You know, we think, oh, they have this wonderful idea, but the reality on the ground is a lot different because everyone is so very busy executing and doing the thing that the startup fails to make time and make room to get the new ideas, wonderful transformative ideas from the people that are actually working there. So in the grand tradition of these talks, it might be good to start out with a wonderful quote. This is from Sir Ken Robinson. And the role, I think, of a leader, and he says this really beautifully, it's not to have all the ideas. And in fact, if you have all the ideas in your team, in your startup, in what you're doing, then you're doing it wrong. The ideas should come not just from you, but also should come from underneath, above, all around you, from people who have context, who have passion, and who have the kind of ability to make these things come to fruition for you and your company. So what do I actually mean by creativity? And creativity is one of these words that is hard to define. In this context, what I mean by creativity is using imagination, using thinking to combine concepts or something in new ways that you will actually bring an idea or bring a product or bring something wonderful new into the world that you didn't have before. So the OED, wonderful Oxford English Dictionary, gives three, I think, very illustrative example sentences of the word creativity. So the first, firms are keen to encourage creativity. Well, I hope they are, and I certainly hope that you will be keen to encourage creativity after we leave here. The second, we owe it to them to make sure they get a fair return for their creativity, flair, and inspiration. Well, that's also true. Who is them? I would say it's not only your clients or the people that you work for, but it's also the people who you work with. We should celebrate creative ideas. We should celebrate the process of applying your passion, your experience to bringing something new into the world. And then we run into a problem. Working in an office can suck all of the creative energy and spirit in your system. Oh. Well, that's a problem. So why does this happen, that working in an office sucks all the creativity out of the system? And I would say that it's mainly because people lose sight of what the benefits of creativity, of organic creativity from the bottom up actually are. And what are these benefits? Why should you want them? So the first is more productivity. Creativity is productive. Creativity is not something that you do on a hack day once every quarter and you come up with a list of 50 ideas that go into the ether and are never seen again. Creativity is coming up with new processes, new ways of thinking that save you time, that get you a better work product at the end. And all work, any work, even being a janitor, I would posit, can be creative work if it's done with thought, with care, and with craft. So the next thing, more money. Obviously, if you're putting out a better work product, you're going to get more money for it. If you have happy employees and they don't leave you and you don't have to spend 6 months every time searching for a new designer or a new developer or a new X, then you will save money. And finally, more joy. Who does not want to work in an office where people are happy, people are switched on, people burst out of bed on maybe they don't burst out of bed on a Monday morning wanting to come to work, but at least they're not spending their entire Sunday in dread on the couch eating bonbons under a blanket because they just can't bear the thought of coming into work tomorrow. So what do you actually do to encourage creativity? I've talked it up, it sounds fantastic. So what can you practically do? I think the first is to empathize. And this is, if I leave you with no other thing from this talk, this is the most important point. We encourage empathy in the design process, in service design or UX or wherever you come from. We encourage people to have creativity and empathy for users. So we want to understand what makes the user tick. We want to understand what they want, what problems they have, how we can solve issues that they are dealing with. But we fail to apply this design thinking, this empathy, to our relationships with other people that we work with. And if you stop for a moment to consider in your interactions with your teammates, what does this person want? Where do they come from? What problem are they trying to solve? What assumptions are they bringing into what they're saying to me? Then I guarantee that you will not only get a better result because you can come to an understanding faster, but you'll have a lot easier time in the process and have a better relationship with people. I can't emphasize enough that it's important to, when you're speaking with some other people, to switch your perspective, to not focus so much on what you want, on your goals, your objectives, because you can get sucked down into them. But if you switch perspectives and understand what the other person wants, then you can figure out where those things overlap and come up with a creative solution together instead of you're trying to push your way, he's trying to push his way, you're talking past each other, and you can't get it together. So what's the next thing you should do? Give context. And context is so important. It's the best way to give context is to build backwards from the future. What do I mean by this? I mean, don't imagine the steps from here, 1, 2, 3. Imagine the future state. If we do this right, if we build this thing, if we, get this contract or whatever, what does the future look like? So you can agree on essentially a goal, what you want. And when you have that agreement, you can brainstorm, work backwards, and figure out how you will have gotten there. It's also important to inspire a thirst for knowledge. No matter how senior you are, no matter how long you've been in the industry, no matter how many PhDs you have, you can always learn more, you can always do more, you can always be more. And it's important that your teammates see that you are always trying to expand your knowledge, always trying to expand yourself. Most importantly, that you're willing to take feedback and to give honest feedback to people. And you can create a culture where the knowledge feeds on itself, where you can share with each other, and it's very exciting to be in a team where everybody is working to make themselves better, everyone is working to make each other better. And then continually test your thinking. There is a field of user research, and unfortunately, the user research usually lives with user researchers. We don't think often enough about, I've made assumptions of what my user wants, or I've made assumptions of what my team member wants, or I've made assumptions. Ask you me, right? You have to continually test your thinking. The next thing you can do is encourage leadership. And my husband and I continually have this argument back and forth. I say, leadership, it comes from underneath. It's emergent. Anyone can be a leader. And he says, no, you can't. You have to get promotion for that. It's like, no, you don't have to get a promotion for that. What I mean by leadership is it comes from within. The first person you lead is yourself. The first person that you are empathetic with is yourself. The first person you make better is yourself. And when you are doing that, when you're firing on all the cylinders, then people naturally come to you. They flock to you. They want to hear what you're saying. And it doesn't matter whether you're the juniorest junior who ever juniored that just graduated from a program, or whether you have, a PhD and you're kind of Lord Muck and everybody kowtows to you and you come and speak at things like this. It doesn't matter. Leadership comes from within. And no promotion, no title can make you a leader. It can make you a manager, and you will suck ass as a manager if you don't follow the principles that I'm talking about, but it will not make you a leader. Facilitation. The facilitation mindset is the mindset that when somebody comes to you and says, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, you don't say, the next thing you do is X, because all that does is set up a dependency relationship between you and the person, and the next time they're stuck, they come to you, oh, I don't know how to do this. No, what you do is you facilitate them. They come to you, they say, I don't know. It's like, well, what's going through your mind? Give me a couple of options. How might you like to proceed? Then you can give them feedback on the options that you're giving you. So what you're doing is not giving them the answer. You're going through a wonderful Socratic method of helping them find the answer. This does two things. It not only inspires their confidence in themselves because they came up with the answer that they were then able to execute on, but it helps teach your thinking patterns and propagate your way of thinking so that you build up the expertise within the team, and then people don't need you. You might say, oh, that's very bad for my retention. I might get fired if people don't need me. No, the point of this is that you are not free to move out, move up, move on, move whatever, if you are leaving behind you a string of people who are so dependent on you that things fall apart if you should go away. And then trust people. This is the second most important thing. I'll give you a war story. I have had the great misfortune to work with many founders who say, well, I just want to know that in any situation that comes up, you will make the same decision that I would make in the same circumstances. I say this is a great misfortune because this is the opposite of trust. This is the most important thing. Your preferences are not the arbiter of what's right. There has to be some arbiter of what is right that you agree on besides what you like. Now, you can refer back to user research, or you can refer back to some other thing to determine which of you is right and which of you is wrong in a situation. But even if you're a founder, telling people, I need to know that you'll think exactly like me, tells them that you will never trust them because nobody thinks exactly like anybody else. I'm sure anyone who has a twin in here can tell us how often they disagree with their twin. Devolve decision making. This is difficult to do. Decisions, I believe, should be made by the people who have the most context and the most knowledge of the conditions on the ground. So if someone has to make a decision about what should go into a report or whatever, well, who's been doing the report for the longest time? Who's talked with all the stakeholders? Who knows where the information is to be found? It's probably not you at the kind of management or senior level. It's probably that junior who has been working away for 6 months, doing nothing but crafting this report, has deep knowledge of it and can suggest improvements or things to be put into it. Decisions should be made at the level where the information is. And if that is lower than you, higher than you, whatever, that's where the decision should be made. That doesn't mean that you don't have oversight. That doesn't mean that you don't ask why people are thinking the way they're thinking when they make decisions. That doesn't mean that they don't come to you, but they come to you with their intent and they say, I intend to do this, which is a strong and powerful language, rather than coming to you and saying, can I do this, which is disempowering. And then trust begets trust. So you can't set an arbitrary deadline or something and say, well, I want you to have been here a year and get to know everyone, and then we'll establish trust. Or I want to see how you do on delivering this project, and then we'll establish trust. You will never get to trust unless you say, look, here is something. I think that you're able to do it. Please do it in the best way that you know how. Come to me if you're stuck. I will help you think through the problems, but you own this. This is yours. You put that little bit of trust in people, and you'll see people lift off. You'll see them flourish. You will see them execute like mad on the thing in order to be worthy of the trust that you've put in them. And then you'll begin a virtuous cycle where you trust them with more and they do better. You trust them with more and they do better. This is the only way to get people to enjoy working with you. This is the only way to get people to do their best work and to want to do their best work, is to trust them, for God's sake. And then, last but not least, don't compromise. Don't work for people who stifle your creativity. Don't work for people who say things like, I want to know that you'll think exactly like I do, and then I will trust you. Don't work for people who say, it's my company, I'm the boss. You do what I say because I pay the bills. Don't work for people like that, because they're not going to a good place, and they're not going to take you to a very good place either. And I would say, more importantly for your soul in the long term, is don't work for people who expect you to stifle the creativity of your team. If you work in a command and control environment, the people above you can be prats as much as they like, but you don't have to do it within your team. And if you begin doing it within your team, you will soon start to see the negative effects, not only within the team, but also within yourself. Because who wants to work with people who hate working for you? So you say, oh, this is fantastic, but I'm in banking, or I'm in medicine, or I'm in whatever. It won't work in my industry. Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, it will, because it works in the military. This guy, David Marquette, wrote a book he took over the worst performing submarine in the US Navy. Like, it was dangerous. The people were about to be kind of demoted or taken out of the submarine. It had all kinds of incidents. It failed inspection after inspection. Instead of coming in and saying, you're going to do what I say the way I say it, what he did is devolve leadership to his soldiers, even down to the guy whose job it was to literally swab out the engine room of this nuclear submarine. The thing that he says, and I recommend that you read his book, is to talk in intent language. So rather than saying, submerge the submarine, which, the captain by law in the Navy is the only one who can say that, he didn't do that. He said to the first officer, tell me what you intend to do. Tell me that you intend to submerge the submarine. Tell me that you've gone through all the safety checks. So his first officer would say, Captain, I intend to submerge the submarine. Now, if you can use intent language and devolve decision-making to your guys in a nuclear frickin' submarine, I think you might be able to do it with a bunch of university-educated knowledge workers. It also works in manufacturing, and this is, if you've ever had the misfortune of going to Harvard Business School, this is one of the kind of key case studies that you will be confronted with. This car factory, it was called NUMMI. It was a joint venture between Toyota and General Motors. This was in 1984. GM had to close down the factory because the workers were literally the worst in the industry. They would do things like sabotage cars by putting glass Coke bottles in the door panels so that they would rattle in order to get themselves overtime that they would use to fix the cars in the yard. Because, time and a half, who doesn't like money? Toyota said, look, GM, reopen the factory, hire back your worst workers, and we will show them the way to basically bring this up to where it is the best car factory in the industry. They hired back the worst workers against the advice of GM. They hired back the people who had failed safety examinations. They hired back the people who came into job never having worked a day in their life and never intending to work. They brought these guys back. 3 years later, NUMMI was the best car factory in the United States. It had the lowest record of defects found in automobiles. And what did they do? They devolved decision-making to the people on the line. They gave them a rope that they could pull every time they found a defect or something wrong with one of the cars on the line. And it took a while before people felt comfortable pulling this cord, but once they did, morale went up because the individual workers could take a decision that would affect the quality, and they were responsible not for the quantity of stuff they put out, they were responsible not for the number of hours they had, they were responsible for the quality of the automobiles that they put out. So, great, you say, okay, Charlotte, you've convinced me. I intend to start a creativity task force tomorrow. We can make one little team, and it'll be empowered, and it'll be fantastic, it'll be great. No, not long. Compartmentalized creativity doesn't work. And this is what I mentioned. You know, if you have a hack day once a month, you're not inspiring creativity. You can't say, for the other 20 days, it's going to be a command and control thing. You're going to be down in execution. You know, that's the only thing you can do. But, you know, you have a hack day, so it's okay. We're creative, right? No. Compartmentalized creativity doesn't work because you can't turn on and off this idea of autonomy. You can't turn on and off the idea of facilitation or of communicating in intentions instead of orders. So don't compartmentalize it. Start tomorrow with the people in your team or even with yourself. So, do I have any last words? If I had to put it in a tweet, 140 characters, I would say giving them ownership will give you freedom. Freedom to make yourself better, freedom to move up if you want to, freedom to take on additional projects that you wouldn't have been able to take on before. And thank you. And this is me.